Hey everyone, this is Haley and welcome back to my channel. So this month I'm gonna do a book haul video and I'm super excited. Even though I had to narrow it down to like 10 to 11 selections, it's kind of gonna be a spring and summer TBR list as well as a book haul, but these are the selections, the titles that I'm super excited about. You've got some intricate fantasies, some dark gothic fantasies, as well as a super cool nonfiction that I'm gonna go ahead and pop up on the screen. It is The Anthropocene reviewed by John Green. And if you don't know who John Green is, you're probably familiar with his work. He was the author of The Fault in Our Stars, and he's also one of the producers and voices of Crash Course World History, all of the Crash Course series, as well as Crash Course Kids. So both he and his brother, Hank Green, have a huge hand in educational resources online, and they're just genuine, down-to-earth, kind human beings. It shines through in their work. I actually kind of found out late that this was going to be published. I knew that he had a podcast devoted to these type of essay reviews, but I had no idea he was going to be publishing a collection of them. The Anthropocene Reviewed is a collection of essays on things that we come in contact with every day, whether it be scratch and sniff stickers or bacterial meningitis, even velociraptors. He reviews them and he writes these essays with such a funny, witty insight, and then it turns into something profound along the way. They're only a couple pages in length each, so I think it's going to turn out to be a super easy read. And actually, John Green signed the entire first printing of this book, so I'm going to open it up and show you the amazing signature. This is his lovely autograph here. On the opposite page, you'll find an autograph, mine to be exact, which I signed with some kind of Sharpie while sitting on the edge of the couch in my basement. This sheet of paper was then bound into your copy of The Anthropocene Reviewed. I wanted to sign this book for you in the hopes that it might give you the same little moment of joy that I always feel when I come across a signed book. An autograph doesn't mean much, I guess. It's just a scribble on a page. An utterly illegible scribble in my case. But it's the only way I know how to say thank you. Thank you for giving this book a seat at the table in your life. I give autographs 3.5 stars. I love anything John Green writes and says and does, and I think this will be no different. You're going to find a bunch of new witty sayings that become your favorite. You're going to find a new author that you love. There's actually a website dedicated to this book, and it's so cool. It's where you can register your book, and it shows John Green, it shows the publishers where this book has traveled all across the world. I'm going to include it in the description box below, but it's super cool. It just gives them a way to see how this book has touched lives, and it's a neat premise. I love that. It's something different. You don't see this every day. They're such genuine, down-to-earth individuals, and I will support the Green brothers for as long as I live. Next up is a super cool gothic fantasy. It's called In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. It follows this city called Thanopolis and the main character Roven, who has to try and suppress her powers because those who are gifted with magic are assigned a spirit from the dead, and this spirit guards them but also controls them. So to keep herself from this fate, she has suppressed it, but during one event, her magic is accidentally revealed, and then she's kind of thrust along this journey. She ends up finding herself falling in love with Lydia, a princess who is also struggling against her destiny, and then Ivrilos, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but he is a spirit of the undead who can overtake her body and her soul. And then together, the three of them start to uncover secrets of the underworld in the city Thanopolis. And then they have to destroy them in order to save them. So I'm really excited to see how these three come together, who she ends up falling in love with in the end, how the whole storyline comes together. So super cool premise, super dark and gothic. I really love this, and I love the artwork. Next on the list is a retelling of the Guinevere King Arthur legend. I am really interested in learning about King Arthur. This is Guinevere's Deception, and it's by Kiersten White. I've never read anything by this author in particular, but it's the first in an expectant trilogy. The first and second novels are already out. The third one is to be released this fall, and it follows Guinevere, who has been sent by Merlin to both protect and marry King Arthur. I already love that it's kind of a twist and gender bending changeling in the fact that Guinevere is going to be the one protecting King Arthur. She has some type of magical abilities. The word changeling was kind of thrown around, so I'm really excited to see, and I'm curious to see if Guinevere is actually Guinevere or if someone is posing as Guinevere as this changeling. I'm also really excited to see if there's going to be a Lancelot romance, a forbidden romance between them, because I believe in the original Arthurian legend that was a love triangle. So because we are heading into Middle Ages in homeschool, I wanted to both read a young adult that has the King Arthur legend in it, and then I also bought the original Arthurian legend, or kind of an original. This is by Howard Pyle, and good lord, it is definitely the old English type of writing. My daughter actually begs for me to read this one to her at night. I do not understand why. She enjoys the story, so I'm not complaining. It's very old English, but I did want to read and become more familiar with the original Arthurian legend instead of just delving into young adult fantasy and fiction. I know that it may have been rooted in history somewhat, but I'm really excited to get down to the roots of a very familiar tale. So next book on the list is one that I got just for the cover. I mean, I love the premise too, but the cover was just so beautiful, and springtime and summer, and it was just so bright and gorgeous. This is In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens, and it follows Prince Tal's voyage, and he has to go on this coming of age tour across the kingdom. While they're sailing, they come across this burning vessel, and on the vessel there's this mysterious stranger. Prince Tal immediately feels this connection, but suddenly the stranger prisoner ends up jumping overboard. He feels responsible for this person, but a few days later, he comes upon the stranger again, obviously alive and well, and I believe the stranger is a mermaid. So I'm really excited because I love anything mermaid, so that was another reason why I ended up picking up this book. And then he ends up reuniting with this stranger, and they have to work together because Prince Tal is kidnapped by a band of pirates. These pirates are trying to out his powers. These powers have been heretofore suppressed because his kingdom is in this fragile newfound peace. I feel like they're all such good stories, and they're all so beautiful. I'm more upset that sleep is a thing and I have to actually feed and sleep and take a break from reading and do videos and go to work. I just want to read. I just want to read all the books and have all the mysterious adventures. So In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. I'm pretty sure it's like a pirate, mermaid, romance, and full of adventure. It's a standalone, I think. That's pretty good for me because I have been stuck in these 10 plus book series, and I want a few more standalones in my life. And I also believe In the Ravenous Dark is a standalone too. Hopefully this month I can get more single novels in instead of having to continue and finish the series like my OCD demands. The next on the list is an author that I know and love very well. This is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and this is her adult debut. She's the author of the Shadow and Bone, Six of Crows series. I've read every one of her other books, I believe. This is the only one I have yet to dig into. I am curious to see how adult this is going to be. I think it's just the darker, more grisly theme that makes it adult. I don't necessarily think it's going to be like rife with sex. So this follows Alex, the sole survivor of an unsolved multiple homicide, and as she's on her hospital bed, this mysterious benefactor comes into play and offers her a place at a prestigious university, Yale. The catch being that she has to monitor the secret societies of the university. She's then thrust into the sinister and violent world of magic and the occult. So I believe that's kind of where the adult theme comes into play, in that it's kind of a serious diving into magic and witchcraft with a very violent side. I thought it was going to be a standalone, but then I happened across a tweet that she had put out and saying that she kind of plans upwards of 5 novels for this series and for Alex's journey. I'm really not too upset about that. I've loved everything else Leigh Bardugo has put out, so I'm sure this will be no different. And this is the Barnes & Noble's exclusive edition. I think the only thing exclusive about it is that it really has this like annotated chapter at the back, which I really kind of could care less about. I really would prefer like a beautiful hardback with some holographic designs or something, but I'm pretty sure that's all they meant about the exclusive edition. So I'm really excited to see what she could do with a different magical world because I've been stuck in the Grishaverse for so long. I think it'll be pretty good. So next on the list is one that I believe is going to be really similar to Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. It's kind of a newer release. It is Some Girls Do by Jennifer Dugan, and it follows two female protagonists, Ruby and then also Morgan. Morgan is an openly gay athlete that has been forced to transfer because her Catholic school decides that it's against its code of conduct to be gay. As she enters this new public school, she meets Ruby, who is a girl who'd rather spend her time tinkering with machines, but on the weekends she's forced to kind of live out her mother's dreams and expectations doing beauty pageants. So Ruby and Morgan end up discovering one another and feeling drawn to each other. Ruby is, I believe, kind of sorting out her sexuality, whereas Morgan knows who she is. So they kind of discover who they are in the face of society, as well as discovering a first love. Hope this will be a beautiful coming of age romance story, and it's just a beautiful cover. I love all the pink orange tones that I ended up discovering this month. Some Girls Do by Jennifer Dugan. Next on the list is a book that is like deceptively small. Whatever paper they chose to print this book in, it is heavy. Like the next book on the list, Realmbreaker, that I have, this is heavier than that book. And let me just compare the sizes. Like this book on the right is heavier than this book. Whatever they chose, like, it's heavy duty stuff. I could use this as a murder weapon, hands down. But anyway, this is the next book on the list, Alatsaway by Darcy Little Badger. And this is actually a young adult fantasy mystery following Ellie, or Alatsaway, who has the power to resurrect spirits of dead animals, which is pretty cool. And she ends up instigating this investigation into the death of her cousin. And she lives in this very odd, mysterious town who has been pushing this murder under the rug. They don't want anyone looking into it, but she's bent on seeking justice for the death of her cousin. So I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. I think it is kind of leaning towards middle grade instead of young adult. So hopefully I'll end up being able to include this in our homeschool curriculum later on down the road. So after I get done reading The Priory of the Orange Tree, this is going to be my next chunky read. And it has made so many best books of 2021. I'm really excited to pick it up. It's my first introduction to anything by Victoria Aveyard. I know she wrote the Red Queen series, but I have not read anything else. This is Realmbreaker, and it's a new release for this year. It follows main protagonist Corraine, who discovers she's the last in this ancient lineage of untold power. And she has to band together with this found family, which I'm really excited to read about. It has an assassin, an ancient sorceress, an immortal, a bounty hunter, a forgery expert, and I think I totaled them all up because the author said that she had really heavy Lord of the Rings inspiration, and there are only 8 members of this found family, so she was so close to the 9 fellowship, but alas, only 8. But that's quite a few characters to include in a found family. I think it's going to be a very intricate young adult fantasy. They have to band together against this unspeakable evil who's raising an army to break the realm in order to control it. I've been diving into more and more high fantasy and loving every minute of it. So after I get done with Priory of the Orange Tree, this will be my chunky read. And may I also mention that the map work in the front and back of this book is absolutely stunning. I love maps, and this one is super intricate. It may just be all of the mountains and the trees tricking my eyesight, but it seems to be an expansive world. I'm just really excited to traverse all of these lands that Victoria Aveyard has given me. Super interesting premise on the next book. This is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. Initially, it was the cover that sparked my interest, but I started reading the synopsis and I thought this is going to be such a cool premise to follow. This follows a set of girls who are quarantined in this boarding school type setting from this tox that infects their bodies and minds. And initially, they're all quarantined. They're told to stay there. Help will come to you. A cure will be sent. And then the teachers start dying off. I know that some of the girls go missing, and it prompts one of the main protagonists to leave the setting for help. And it's been described as kind of like a female Lord of the Flies, which is one of my all-time favorite novels. I'm really excited to see what this tox disease is and the symptoms that it creates. I think this is such a cool premise. I think this is such a cool storyline. I know that further on down the story, the plot, the girls start realizing that the reality, the truths, and the lies that they've been told, they're not what they've been led to believe. So I'm really excited to see how maybe this might take a sci-fi turn of events. I'm not sure if it's fantasy per se or if it's just like a psychological thriller, but it seems so cool. So this list so far has been a pretty good mix of fantasy and fiction, and then also a nonfiction in there, but I'm gonna also include a historical fiction for this month. This is Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee, and it's an absolutely gorgeous cover. For as much as I love the tragedy and researching the Titanic, I'm surprised I've never picked up any historical fiction. This follows the main protagonist, Valora Luck, and hopefully her name is a little bit of foreshadowing and she makes it. But Valora and her twin brother are trying to cross on the Titanic's maiden voyage and complete their dreams of being circus performers in New York City. As she's trying to board the Titanic, she ends up getting turned away. She has to become a stowaway on the ship, find her brother, and then secure her dreams of performing in this circus. Now, this American dream quickly turns into a struggle for survival as what we all know happens, the Titanic begins to sink. I'm really excited to see the twist of the Titanic through someone else's eyes, see the racial inequality that was going on during the time. I've heard really good things about all of these books, but they're also beautiful, all such amazing premises, and the artwork is stunning. I just love this. It's absolutely gorgeous. Next one on the list is such a cool premise for urban fantasy. This is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, and it follows this setting in New York City where the avatar of New York, who is basically the personified soul of the city, ends up falling into a supernatural coma. And then these 5 strangers who are not connected in any way end up developing powers. They end up realizing that they are the new personification of the city, and these powers come in handy whenever they have to battle this enemy whose only goal is to destroy the soul of New York City. So how cool is that? I think this is going to be a huge and amazing twist on urban contemporary fantasy. How cool is the premise? So thank you so much for tuning in this week. This is my spring book haul, and I really had to narrow it down. These are the top choices that I have for spring and summer. I'll usually include them on my reading wrap-ups for each month, so stay tuned. I'll include what I think about them and whether they lived up to the hype. So thank you so much for tuning in.